button, so thank you for reminding me.
Uh-huh.
Um, so here we are at chapter 9, section 5. Let's start this. We have progressed through the pre-ramble, and we're on this reading. So we'll read a paragraph at a time. One of these times, we'll go through the whole thing. I promise. So this is 5, and this is a relatively short one. So maybe we'll go through the whole thing. Let's go through the whole thing. So 9.5. And if we're going through the whole thing, I will just brief interjections every so often. The ego's plan for forgiveness is far more widely used than God's. This is because it is undertaken by unhealed healers and is therefore of the ego. Let us consider the unhealed healer more carefully now. By definition, he is trying to give what he has not received. If an unhealed healer is a theologian, for example, he may begin with the premise, I'm a miserable sinner, and so are you. If he is a psychotherapist, he is more likely to start with the equally incredible belief that attack is real for both himself and the patient, but that it does not matter for either of them. I have repeatedly said that beliefs of the ego cannot be shared, and this is why they are unreal. How then can uncovering them make them real? Every healer who searches fantasies for truth must be unhealed because he does not know where to look for truth and therefore does not have the answer to the problem of healing. There is an advantage to bringing nightmares into awareness, but only to teach they are not real and that anything they contain is meaningless. The unhealed healer cannot do this because he does not believe it. All unhealed healers follow the ego's plan for forgiveness in one form or another. If they are theologians, they are likely to condemn themselves, teach condemnation, and advocate a fearful solution. Projecting condemnation onto God, they make God appear retaliative and fear his retribution. What they have done is merely to identify with the ego and, by perceiving what it does, condemn themselves because of this confusion. It is understandable that there have been revolts against this concept, but to revolt against it is still to believe in it. Some newer forms of the ego's plan are as unhelpful as the older ones because form does not matter and the content has not changed. In one of the newer forms, for example, a psychotherapist may interpret the ego's symbols in a nightmare and then use them to prove that the nightmare is real. Having made it real, he then attempts to dispel its effects by depreciating the importance of the dreamer. This would be a healing approach if the dreamer were also identified as unreal. Yet, if the dreamer is equated with the mind's corrective power through the Holy Spirit is denied. This is a contradiction even in the ego's terms, and one which it usually notes even in its confusion. If the way to counteract fear is to reduce the importance of the mind, how can this build ego strength? Such evident inconsistencies account for why no one has really explained what happens in psychotherapy. Nothing really does. Nothing real has happened to the unhealed healer, and he must learn from his own teaching. His ego will always seek to get something from the situation. The unhealed healer, therefore, does not know how to give and consequently cannot share. He cannot correct because he is not working correctively. He believes that it is up to him to teach the patient what is real, although he does not know it himself. What then should happen? When God said, "Let there be light," there was light. Can you find light by analyzing darkness, as the psychotherapist does, or, like the theologian, by acknowledging darkness in yourself and looking for a distant light to remove it while emphasizing the distance? Healing is not mysterious. Nothing will change unless it is understood, since light is understanding. A miserable sinner cannot be healed without magic, nor can an unimportant mind esteem itself without magic. Both forms of the ego's approach then must arrive at an impasse, the characteristic impossible situation to which the ego always leads. It may help someone to point out where he is heading, but the point is lost unless he is also helped to change his direction. The unhealed healer cannot do this for him, since he cannot do it for himself. The only meaningful contribution the healer can make is to present an example of one whose direction has been changed for him and who no longer believes in nightmares of any kind. The light in his mind will therefore answer the questioner, who must decide with God that there is light because he sees it. And by his acknowledgement, the healer knows it is there. That is how perception ultimately is translated into knowledge. The miracle worker begins by perceiving light and translates his perception into sureness by continually extending it and accepting its acknowledgement. Its effects assure him it is there. A therapist does not heal. He lets healing be. He can point to darkness, but he cannot bring light of himself, for light is not of him. Yet being for him, it must also be for his patient. The Holy Spirit is the only therapist. He makes healing clear in any situation in which he is the guide. You can only let Spirit fulfill his function. He needs no help for this. He will tell you exactly what to do to help anyone he sends to you for help, and will speak to him through you if you do not interfere. Remember that you choose the guide for helping, and the wrong choice will not help. But remember also that the right one will. Trust Spirit, for help is his function, and he is of God. As you awaken other minds to the Holy Spirit through Spirit, and not yourself, you will understand that you are not obeying the laws of this world, but the laws you are obeying work. The good is what works is a sound, though insufficient, statement. Only the good can work. Nothing else works at all. This course offers a very direct and a very simple learning situation and provides the guide who tells you what to do. If you do it, you will see that it works. Its results are more convincing than its words. They will convince you that the words are true. By following the right guide, you will learn the simplest of all lessons. By their fruits ye shall know them, and they shall know themselves. So let's cycle on back to the beginning. Now, I'd like to just give a reminder or encouragement to certainly use chat if we're talking about a word or a word is referenced here and we're not sure what it's talking about. This is sprinkled all through A Course in Miracles, these words that are so precisely technical. And if we're reading it without this understanding of the technical meaning, it may seem to be confusing. So chat is our capital F friend here.
I'd also like to add that just a reminder that A Course in Miracles was given to or shared with 2 psychologists. So it's of particular interest to me today to remember that as we're looking at the subject of the unhealed healer, and psychology being one of those areas where unhealed healing attempts happen a lot.
Yes, of course. And of course, this is not meant to brush over all of psychotherapists as much as the unhealed psychotherapist, the unhealed theologian, the unhealed doctor, the unhealed cashier, whatever it may be. In order to heal, we must be in the active process of healing ourselves. We must be not committed fully, devoted fully to this non-judgmental self-awareness, which naturally extends to all that we see and to everybody that we encounter. Interestingly enough, while reading this, the pronouns in A Course in Miracles, as a partially side note, can be a bit confusing every so often. At least when first reading this, you're not sure if he, because he refers to Holy Spirit and it refers to God. And then there's the lowercase he, which refers to our brother. And I always, I tend to read the name so that we get a greater understanding of what's being said. But interestingly enough, it doesn't matter because it's all the same. Our brother or spirit or God is the same. We can see God and spirit through our brother if we allow our brother to, if we allow ourselves to see it in our brother. So he, great, she, it, and so forth. So just an overall brush of, we spoke of not talking about before as an overall brush, but let's use a overall brush here, just briefly to cover what this is generally getting at, this unhealed healer. So how this is presenting itself. Of course, Helen and Bill, the scribes of A Course in Miracles, are in the frame of reference of psychotherapy, psychology, and so this is given largely, and Helen also loves theology and biblical texts and so forth, so theologian comes in here too. But this is essentially given to us so that just as everybody who is sharing A Course in Miracles, whether it's reading it or talking about it or teaching it or learning it, it's all the same thing, because engaging with A Course in Miracles is part of the process of being a student teacher. We can't learn it without teaching it. We can't teach it without learning it. It's the same process. Thus, when a psychotherapist, for instance, goes into an appointment for psychotherapy, let's say, for instance, and the psychotherapist says, now it's my time, this person needs healing, and so I can heal them, so I'll heal them, and they'll pay me and so forth, but they need something and I'm giving it to them. They won't get it unless that sort of thinking, that's an unhealed healer. Similarly, we're brought in about a theologian who essentially preaches condemnation, or everybody's a sinner, everybody is condemned unless you repent for you have to beg forgiveness for your sins. It's the same mistake. It's starting from a place of unhealing. It's starting from the place of unforgiveness within, and then that's what naturally extends outward. So of course, the remedy, the solution for a psychotherapist, let's say, is for the psychotherapist to know, to understand, to have a knowingness, to acknowledge, to allow truth to be such that when there is an appointment, the therapist says, essentially, or one way of saying this is, mutual healing. We're about to embark on mutual healing. This client, I don't think there's anything wrong with the word client, but this client comes in and they are coming in because they are offering something to me that only they can give to me. Likewise, similarly, equally, I am offering to them something that only I can give to them. So this is a blessed encounter, equal encounter where we're sharing. It's an equal share. It's not a give and take. It's a equal sharing. This is the unhealed healer, to just put it very briefly. So it's a concept of the unhealed healer and putting it next to perhaps the healed healer or the healing healer. So we have just a note from Christine saying the word psychotherapist breaks down into psycho, the name of someone who is mentally unwell, and therapist breaks down into the rapist. So, I guess we could take a pretty harsh, we could certainly take a pretty harsh stance on therapist if we wanted to, Christy. So let's start reading this from the top here. The ego's plan for forgiveness is far more widely used than God's. And remember, I believe it was last week or the week before, or every week that we talk about the forgiveness and the distinction between the ego's definition and spirit's definition. Ego's plan for forgiveness is what we're about to embark upon through these paragraphs. And essentially, it is this concept of something bad has happened, and so we're just going to overlook it. You did something bad to me, and it's okay. I will overlook it, even though I've just defined it as bad. And so it's not going anywhere. That's the ego's plan of forgiveness, which just reinforces the error, makes it true. So this is because it is undertaken. By the way, raised hand feature. If anyone wants to come in and say something, just do a raised hand so I'll know to pass the baton, so to speak. So this is because it is undertaken by unhealed healers and therefore of the ego. Let us consider the unhealed healer more carefully now. By definition, he is trying to give what he has not received. Of course, the unhealed healer can't heal if they have no healing to provide. If an unhealed healer is a theologian, for example, he may begin with the premise, I am a miserable sinner, and so are you. If he is a psychotherapist, he is more likely to start with the equally incredible belief that attack is real for both himself and the patient, but that it doesn't matter for either of them. I have repeatedly said that beliefs of the ego cannot be shared, and that is why they are unreal. How can uncovering them make them real? Every healer who searches fantasies for truth must be unhealed because he does not know where to look for truth and therefore does not have the answer to the problem of healing. So
I'd like to jump in and just say that a lot of psychotherapy is looking to the past, right? Which isn't, the past is not real. So looking there is, it's futile and silly, actually, if you're looking there for truth.
Yes. And so let us, I'd like to just extend this a bit. So clearly A Course in Miracles takes this bold stance, presents a bold stance to us by often saying that the past is not real. I know there are little workbook lessons that kind of allude to this too. And one clarification or one extension that I'd like to make of this is when we're talking about past events, the event is not here. This is what we're talking about. The event is not here. The happening is not here. Our thought of it is here. Our thought of it is here. We don't need to discount our thoughts of the past, but let's acknowledge them for what they are. They're thoughts about the past. So our thought about the past, the thing that happened 5 years ago, is real. We don't need to discount it. But to say that that thing is impacting me, hold on. That thing is not here. Only our thought about it is here. And so let's start from here. Our thought about this thing in the past is what's holding us back or giving us This is where the healing starts. Because if we project our lack of peace onto something that's 5 years ago, we're giving away all our power because we cannot go to the thing that's 5 years ago. We're saying, this thing took away my power and I can't even access it. It's 5 years in the past, so I can't have peace. That's what we're saying. If we can look at it from right-mindedness.
And even this thing happened yesterday or this morning, and it disturbed my peace. Even as recent as that, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, a minute ago. So long as we point our fingers to the event, that's just not correct. But as you said, Noah, it's our thought right now about it that is in need of, that's what requires the healing. And I see that, Teresa, you have your hand raised.
Wanted to look at the book
Teresa, we could hardly hear you. Sorry. Let's see. Do you hear me? It's like very muddled. It sounds like there is like a underwater microphone or something. See if you can get on. You'll have to unmute again. Try this one more time. And while Teresa's getting this resolved, I'd like to just thank you, Karen, for bringing this in, because of course, we can again backtrack to the very first lines in A Course in Miracles, which is there's no order of difficulty in miracles. This says it all. What this says in this context is that there is no difference in amount of time that has elapsed. 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, same thing. Same mistake if we give our power away to it. I should have said this 5 minutes ago, and now it's just over. Hold on. I can continue to have that thought, or I can understand that only that thought is holding me back from doing whatever, or having the peace, embodying the peace right now. And so it's a thought. It's not an event that is no longer here beyond the space-time continuum, but a thought that I can just relinquish or heal. So Teresa will come back. We'll hold the space for you, Teresa. Susan, did you want to say something? You have a hand up. I know you gave a little thumbs up too. I don't know if that was a double whammy or.
Here, I'm going to try to put my video on, but I might lose the internet if I do that, but I'm going to try.
Sure.
If I break up, let me know and I'll take the video off.
Sure.
I'm working. All that really matters to me and what I see in the Course in Miracles, well, there's lots, but it's right now. Like right now. Not 30 seconds ago, not 30 seconds from now, because we never have that. We just have the right now. And I don't know. That's all I wanted to say, because any going back or any going forward, when we're not here right now, we lose our power and we lose our healing, and we're unhealed. We're in the past, we're in the present. Trying to keep this in the context of the Course in Miracles. But I just, it's so much better if we can just be present. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Susan. And I just want to jump on that for a second. Years back, Ram Dass wrote a book called Be Here Now, a wonderful book if no one's ever looked at it. And since then, in my opinion, there's been a little bit of a distortion about the message, because I'm sure there has been books written and workshops created to help people to be here now, which is funny to me because of course we are here now. Where else would we be? We can't be anywhere but here. We're here now. And so we don't need to try to be here now. We need to just acknowledge the fact that we are. And then again, any thoughts that we have that feel like we're trying to be in the present, in the future, or the past, it's simply our thinking.
Yes, Karen, and thank you. It's just, I guess this is the crux of, I think, what we were sharing, is that the past is not here. Our thought about the past is here now, so we are always here now. And as Karen is saying, just to acknowledge, that's it. This is the little willingness, just to say, I am here now. Go ahead, Mary.
Just thinking about what you're saying, it brings to mind all of the mindfulness classes and books that I've read, particularly thinking of Jack Kornfield, There's No Time Like the Present. I see a lot of that, being center stage, grabbing people's attention, even people not familiar with the Course in Miracles. As a teacher, bringing that mindfulness to the children that I teach. So it seems that it's a recurring theme here of being present in the moment.
Yes, it is. And I would just like to walk in what I would consider one of the most powerful, thank you, Mary, for sharing, one of the most powerful single liners from A Course in Miracles about this concept. Of course, A Course in Miracles is just all about these single liners. One of my favorites, my favorite, all inclusive, is now is the closest approximation to eternity that exists. Not a billion years, not a bajillion, not all of the infinite. Now is the closest approximation to eternity that exists. And to really understand what now is, oh, now is eternity. Also, just while we're on this train here, there is all this discussion about being now. It's often called as being here now, of course. There's, they have the watches that, say the time is now and to be in the now, But let's extend it to its logical conclusion. Here is the closest approximation to infinity that this world offers. So where is here? My heart center, right here. This here now. Furthermore, of course, now is the only time that ever was and ever will be. So I've never been anywhere except for now. I've never been any time, any when, except for now. Similarly, I've never been anywhere but here. I've always been here physically, in terms of space. Time, of course, that's kind of like old bag for us. We've always been now. Here, oh, we tend to think that we're walking down the street and driving in the car, but here, we're not actually moving. Here, we are still here. No matter what our body is doing and the things are moving around us, we're here. So I'm not sure, Teresa, if you have
I wanted to try it. Can you hear me now?
better. Yes.
Okay, good. We redid the room a bit today, so everything got moved. What I want, yeah, it was that word fantasies that was in the paragraph that caught my eye, searches fantasies for truth. I'm redoing the lessons, and right now around this time, because I started at the beginning here, the lessons in the course are fit right into with this, in that it's like the images that I made. So it's talking about my thoughts, the images that I've made. So as you guys are talking about now, I was thinking there's different levels of now. I feel like there's lots of people that are hearing this jargon and they're perking up to it and they're moving forward and getting present, but still being really in the now doesn't mean that you're in the shower having a dialogue in your head by yourself about why you're right or your thoughts. So it's interesting because it's coming up around me, and it's probably because I'm really aware of sort of it working this piece, that you can talk about groundedness and different kinds of things to stay calm and all that. And there are people who are like, oh yeah, I'm working on that. But their fight that goes on in their head still, even though they think they're being present. So I guess I'm just saying that there's different levels to it. We're still unpeeling the onion in this regard. It's interesting. It's wonderful. It's becoming mainstream topic. And like Mary's saying, in the schools, teaching kids mindfulness and different things to be calm, and it's awesome. But there are levels and degrees, I feel like, that as we're getting deeper and deeper to that absolute closest to infinity.
Yes, there is. Thank you, Teresa. But it's kind of like, I don't know, like steps in willingness or something where, I think perhaps people are, or it's becoming more fashionable.
Yeah, and it steps in willingness. We have steps in prayer. We have steps in forgiveness, right? Like when you start sort of going into each sort of subcategory, for lack of a better word, how things, you just get deeper and deeper into it.
Yes, indeed. And I think it's kind of, just to extend this a bit here, it's, of course, I think we've been conditioned, as Christine always says, our conditioning, sort of conditioned into buying into or to valuing only the idea of temporal, numerical, limited identity. And so just the thought, this is the power of the little willingness, just the thought that maybe eternity is just here, maybe just to consider this is the step. And then things just, the process either is going or it's not. And this is kind of our role. Either we're accepting atonement for ourselves or not. It's not that we have accepted atonement for ourselves. We are accepting atonement for ourselves or not. It means the same thing. I am here now. Either I'm being here now, or it's not that. Yes, I had chosen to be here now. That doesn't make sense. So I'm accepting. I'm actively in non-judgment. It's not to say there are temptations to not be, but it's at the forefront. It's right here. We have our little toolkit right here, and something comes and we're distracted. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me pull this atonement switch one more time. So let's
We have the willingness to say in that moment, oh, there might be another way of perceiving this, of looking at this.
give us the full scoop, Karen, of little willingness.
Little willingness. It's just this little, it's just this little tiny willingness when we're confronted with something that we're judging as it shouldn't be that way. It's just the willingness to say, well, there might be another way. Not even that there is another way. Just the willingness to say, well, there might be another way of looking at this. And then once you do that, it's like whoosh, and you just move into that other way of seeing it, when that other way equals love, truth, what's real, non-judgment. It's automatic. You don't have to force yourself to be in non-judgment. The willingness, little willingness, moves you into that state elegantly
Thank you, Karen.
and nicely.
I often like to think of this as, it's like, let's say there's a door that's on a hinge that's slightly angled, so that by default it just swings. Doesn't matter if the power's out, it's just gravity. And it's a very heavy door, very heavy. But it leads into heaven, right? And so when we don't have the little willingness, what we're doing is using all of our strength to just keep this door shut. I have to, because or else the door will open and I don't know what's on the other side. The little willingness is just to say, I don't know what's on the other side. So why should I assume that it's scary? And just let it go. And what happens? Effortless, we're not doing anything. The door to heaven opens up and shows to us, and we can just fall in to joy, so to speak.
Let's look at Christine's question here in chat. She says, what if everything you do is right? What would that feel like?
It's a good question.
Or what would that feel like?
Good confirmation, as Neil Donald Walsh likes to say, as others, but I know in our Final Frontier masterclass, Neil Donald Walsh says, not so concerned, I'm not too worried about, or I'm not too thrilled about affirmations, which is saying something that may or may not be true, but confirmations, things that are true. Like, for instance, I am here now. Yeah, this is true every time that we could say it. I am here now. And so Christine brings in a good one. It's a question, but it's almost, we can see it as a rhetorical question. What if everything that I do is right? What would that feel like?
Kathy V says peace.
Yeah. And also one note here, the pushback, and of course there's always it's always a pushback. We're never being pushed into heaven. They can just fall gently here, fall inward here. But the pushback that tends to come is, I don't believe it. What about this counterexample? What about that counterexample? So if this is heaven, what about this hypothetical thing that happened not here? And that's just a thought that's going to tell you that this is not heaven. Now just notice here, this is exactly ego thinking, because it takes the universal, the one, the being that is here, and then tries to break it into parts. So heaven never breaks into parts. Heaven just is all of this together as one. Ego wants to find out how all of this works by analyzing each separate part and putting it together like a puzzle. But it never puts it together because it's just infinitely complicated. So ego breaks into parts and says, that one part doesn't fit with the idea, because we've lost sight of the idea if we're breaking down into parts. That's the whole point. It's making a judgment. It's another way of saying it is, that thing is not in heaven because it's a judgment. And judgment, by definition, is losing sight that this is heaven. Another confirmation, this is perfect. This is heaven, of course. But even perhaps more grounded, this is perfect. This event, all this that is playing out, that I can call my life, or this collective life experience, is perfect. For whom? For me. And all of us, individually and collectively. It is perfect. And we can start from a point of definition, because by doing this, we're allowing the door to just be open.
And by definition, when we talk about ego here, we're talking about ego thinking. And ego thinking is simply a distraction. Simply. I mean, it can feel more than simply, but it's a distraction away from peace, because peace is here. Peace is that which is here. And the ego thinking is a distraction away from that. It's seductive. That's worth a whole other discussion. Why is it so seductive to the human being to look for that which is separated and not, part, and not the whole?
It's only habitual. There's actually nothing desired.
It is. Well, yeah. No, let's just break it down to that. It's just a habit.
We have to, this is what A Course in Miracles is doing, is we have to actually see this as such, or at the very least be willing to see it as such. This is the whole thesis in A Course in Miracles. The whole statement is that ego doesn't offer us anything that we actually want. All it does is distract us, as Karen has said, from what we actually want. So if we could see it this plainly, or at least if we're willing, at least and at most, if we're just willing to see it this plainly, it will be revealed to us this plainly, so that we don't want to. Just like ideally, say we're on a diet, where we're changing our eating preferences more precisely. Ideally, we just want to eat the food that's good for us. Now, why is that not the goal of diets? Why is the diet just for 15 days, you'll go on this thing, you're going to hate it, but you're going to lose a bunch of weight, and so you can put the numbers down that you've accomplished something. How about the goal is, I will love to eat celery. That's my goal, because there's no sacrifice at this point. If our body is calling for celery and we just really want to eat it, it's not a diet. It's just how we eat. We could eat as much of it as we want. Similarly, ego makes it seem like it's a sacrifice for us to be here now in heaven, in perfect peace all the time. But it's not a sacrifice. We're not giving anything up. We're giving everything, and thus receiving everything. So the little willingness here is to say, well, I still, maybe I still am seduced by ego thoughts or desires, but I trust A Course in Miracles. I trust these teachings more generally. And so I'm willing to look beyond them. How did we start this, Karen? There's one thing I wanted to extend that you brought in.
Well, we were talking about distraction. That's where I started my last comment. that ego, when we talk about ego here, what we're talking about is ego thinking.
Yes, we are.
Not sure what you connected to that.
Unimportant. Let's continue here. So there is an advantage to bringing nightmares into awareness, but only to teach that they are not real and that anything they contain is meaningless. The unhealed healer cannot do this. Oh, one thing. Just for if we want to be precise and extend this whole A Course in Miracles vibe, it's not that ego is simply a distraction. Ego is merely a distraction. Spirit is simply perfect peace because it's simple and perfect. Ego is just merely, because merely implies that there can be something more or less, and ego is merely a mistake. The unhealed healers follow the ego's plan for forgiveness in one form or another. Again, we walk in this example. If they are theologians, they are likely to condemn themselves and teach condemnation, advocate a fearful solution. Of course, in so doing, they are projecting condemnation onto God. They make God appear retaliative and fear God's retribution. Now, fittingly enough, what they have done is merely to identify with the ego, and by perceiving what it does, condemn themselves because of that confusion. It is understandable that there have been revolts against that concept, but to revolt against it is still to believe in it. So this is a pretty relevant space here. I know that this division in perspective that exists society-wide, at least in the United States, is largely related to this whole split, at least in one way. It's a split. Let's split-minded, perhaps. So that whole concept that God is condemning and essentially we is retaliative and we must fear the retribution. Similarly, to say that is crap, and so I'm just going to throw everything out the window, is part of the same mistake. It's part of the non-communication that's happening. So regardless of what side it is, it doesn't matter because it's a side, it's not entirety. So if we take it back to grounding here, if somebody is teaching condemnation, retaliation, retribution, it's a signal that this is how this person believes his or herself to be. It's the fundamental thought that this person holds. So the proper response is not to say you're wrong. The proper response is to always just listen. Because just listening, how often, you can just imagine how often this person speaks from this point, and there's either intense pushback or intense pulling. And so there's no wiggle room for the concept to evolve or adapt. It's just either this person just doesn't listen to what I'm saying, so I'm rooting deeper in this, or this person is saying this even more fully, so I'm just going to further my stance in this. But if we just listen to somebody preaching condemnation and just say,
It's
Yeah,
so
right.
interesting because I was just on the phone with one of my sisters last evening, and we have a Jewish background, and we got to talking about free speech in the United States. She lives over in Great Britain, and she was again asking me, I've been asked this by other people, about people who are speaking hatred against any groups, including Jews, right? And so she was drawing a line. It was kind of, in the conversation, it was kind of like, well, yes, of course, freedom of speech, people should be able to say, and people should listen here, here, and here. But, oh, wait, hold on. If you get to that point and they're saying this, No, no, they shouldn't be able to say that. It's like they've crossed that imaginary line, which is so fascinating to me, that we mark those lines in the sand, what people can say, what people can't say. And back to what we're talking about here, what we're willing to listen to and what we're not willing to listen to. It's like, no, I'm not going to hear that. Because usually it's because there's fear that rises up. And of course, I could talk all about why, she was having this conversation with me, and in the Jewish religious conversation about why fear would rise up. But that's just a whole other vantage point. It's not A Course in Miracles vantage point, and that is our intention here. That's our focus here, is what does A Course in Miracles say about these things? And listening is just, it's a really beautiful thing. And I feel it's not spoken about that much in the world at large. That listen inclusively, not exclusively, not drawing those lines in the sand.
It's a beautiful way of framing it, Karen, to say that there's an imaginary line that we've drawn, and then, whoa, this person crossed the line, so I'm going to turn off my listening because they need to change their view, And what is this really doing? Because we have to, this is not a hypothetical thing. This is something that we face. And so if we're getting riled up about something, maybe this is Spirit speaking with us to get riled up, but maybe we're just facing a trigger of some strange fictional belief that we hold, and we're being called to question it. When there's two people that are speaking about a belief, and then I believe this, no, I believe this. It's not communication. I believe this. Well, tell me more about that. Well, it's because of this and this. Oh, interesting. From willingness, from the little willingness that, you know what? Not even from the point of, this person needs healing, and so I'm going to listen to heal them. No. From the full little willingness of, this person is offering me healing right now. This is what A Course in Miracles does. It's flips it, so that rather than going out there and saying, I'm healed, I'm healing everybody. Someone wants to speak with me, and that's great because then they'll be healed. Wait, or alternatively, equally, everybody that speaks with me today is blessing me. Everybody that speaks with me is speaking precisely what God wants to be spoken to me. And so I might as well listen. I might as well listen because it's in my own best interest. And maybe the form, it may seem unfamiliar, or maybe the form I don't accept, but that's besides the point. It's like the Matrix. If anybody or everybody has seen the Matrix, they go to the Oracle. It's not that the Oracle tells Neo what's going to happen. The Oracle tells Neo exactly what he needs to hear. Whether it will happen or not, it's besides the point. We're being told exactly what we need to hear. And if we listen to it, regardless if we heed the things or not, then we will see the gates, the walls have dropped, the barriers to peace have dropped, and we can allow this to unfold in our own best interest. We have a hand raised, Susan. Go ahead, you'll have to unmute.
Yes, I'll be quick. So
Yeah.
Talking about resistance. Resistance is the path. We can't turn away from the resistance, or I can't turn away from the resistance or the obstacle, because that's where the lesson is. Speaking with other people. Listen to them. The more it pushes your buttons, the more you want to run away, the more that is what is needed to be heard. And I just feel like I'm almost 60. I wasn't trained that way. We're trained to run away. Oh, that's scary. I'm going to run away. That's not what I need. Actually, the fear, the resistance, what you don't want to hear is exactly what needs to be heard right now. That's how I feel. It's hard to break through that, but that is how I feel about it. And I feel like the Course in Miracles also promotes pushing through that resistance. That's where the growth is. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And just for refining here, just clarify, it's actually not hard to break through because, like Karen has said, it's an imaginary line. The hardness is to try and convince ourselves that the line exists. That's when it's hard. Like, why would heaven be difficult? Like, of course, I think certain people, you know, enjoy to go for a run and to work at certain things. Like this is joyful, but it shouldn't just be like, we're not here to just be an endless struggle and conflict all the time. No, no, no. Things should be effortless. The grandest things that happen are effortless in the sense that we didn't really do anything in the limited perspective. This major thing just came. It just, but we did press the right button. We did kind of show up, so to speak. So not to discount what we're doing, but what we are doing, we're giving the little willingness. We're pressing the little button. All we're got to say is peace. Okay, I'll press the button of perfect peace for now. I'll just hold, it's in my, I got a clicker, I'll just hold it down. Or I'll just press it so that it's held down now, you know? But that's all it takes. And this was a beautiful sharing, Susan. Let's see, there was another point that I'd love to get at, but let's continue to read here. And of course, I think it's fitting of, you know, about revolting against the concept. What I wanted to bring in, Susan. I know in my experience, in if I can call it my experience, but I think we know what is being said here. In my experience, I was brought time and time again. This was, I'd say, for the span of about 5 years, time and time again, I was brought with somebody who essentially was adamantly sharing with me, I might say convincing or trying to convince me about the power of the Bible. This happened time and time again in my experience, and I embraced it. But what do I know? I never would have thought that now my favorite activity is to sit and read the Bible. It's in the original language. You get a greater understanding of what is actually being said. I never would have thought, because I was in the space of, I never would even consider it. But it was brought to me again and again and again. And if I won't listen from this person, the universe says, maybe this person will get you. Maybe this person will get you. And then finally, I'm in the space of saying, fine, you know, this can't be a coincidence to get it in these sorts of conversations with this many people talking about Bible and these concepts, which I don't enjoy, and I'm pushing it away. I gave the little willingness, and wow, how fully enthused and joyful I am that I have, because it was in my own best interest. I love these things, but I didn't love it when I had the barrier to it up. And I could just listen so that I could respond to the person. That's not listening. If I fully listen and say, wow, this is the fourth person that came into my life that talks about reading the Bible, I'll just read it now, you know? I'll just trust that the process that's involved. Go ahead, Kathy. Hand raised.
Going back, way back in time with us, the word resistance always kept bubbling back up, right? And for me, when you were just sharing your story, Tim, I have to say, whenever I have said, I will never, without fail, I would swear I will never do this. I will never go there. I will never, you know, whatever it is. And I'm a lot older than you guys. And it's like, guess what? And you can sit there, it'll just hit you and you just go, oh my God, here I go again. So there's the minute you feel back to what was shared with Susan, it's that resistance, that's a heads up. And back to the other, I do love what you had shared in that whole idea to find the peace, the grace, in gratitude. You guys, that's it. So I'll keep listening to you, because it's like my head, it's all the information in one way, and the book we know is big and thick and what have you. And it's like trying to just, there's these little little rebellious beings inside trying to, the closer you get sometimes, it's just push back. But it's one of these days, it's just going to go, and it's no more fight, no more. I will pause and allow the peace.
Well, Kathy, you keep listening to us and we'll keep listening to you. Truly.
Yes, amen. Amen. And just thank you, Kathy. Just one visual that you bring up in A Course in Miracles brings in some of these really helpful visuals like you just brought in. And it talks about essentially the witnesses, who are we bringing to the stand? Because whoever we bring to the stand will witness to whatever the agenda is. If we're bringing the witnesses of ego, of course, it'll make the ego seem more desirable. But if we bring spirit to the stand, this is our witness. And witnessing, just a little note on witnessing, I'm sure we know about this whole Pygmalion effect about observation. We can call it witnessing. When we're witnessing another, we can think of it as our limited self witnessing. We can, as a limited perspective witnessing. Or we can understand that God is witnessing this person through us. If we just allow it to be, is the little willingness. If I'm allowing God to witness this person or this action or this event, this circumstance, I will allow God to witness it through me. And in so doing, we get to see how God witnesses it.
And it's that precious being quiet, because everything you're sharing and the power in it, but it's like the conditioning was having a dialogue. If someone came up to you and is speaking to you and sharing, it wouldn't be respectful not to, they're looking at you, looking for that feedback or whatever, but it's really so the opposite of the conditioning in my mind, to be there, to be present, to look, to listen, and not feel that the need that out of respect, or as I say, conditioning, to have that give and take communication. It's really, it's a gift getting there. When you get there, or usually I'm walking away and going, did it again. But it's a complete flip in my mind, the original conditioning. Upside down, right side up.
It is a flip. And just a little tidbit I'd like to bring in here. If we let's say in our experience we have thoughts that we tend to not like, say, or thoughts that we wish we weren't having, or doing things that we wish we weren't doing, it's one thing to push it away. And in my experience, it doesn't really work. It's another thing to let it be used by spirit. Now, how do we do this? Essentially, every time we think that thought or do that thing or let's use it as a tell. Let's use it as a reminder. Oh, this is God. Okay. I forgot for a moment, but this is perfection. This is heaven. So all of a sudden, the thing that was getting us in a space of, I did wrong again, can be flipped completely around so that it projects us into the right-mindedness. Oh, this is heaven. Nothing can take this away. This is perfect. Great. Thank you, thought. Thank you, circumstance, for bringing this back to me again. And this can actually transfer into the dream world too, which has its own unique effects. Let's just continue here. All right, Susan. Go ahead.
All right. It's the field speaking. It's exactly it. And I've had other friends on the path so many. You just got to flip it. Like, if you're beating your head on the window, if what, oh, is causing the most pain, just turn around, go the other direction. It won't even be your instinct, but well, sometimes you got to move through things, but that's how you move through. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Of course it
But
does.
to do the exact opposite of what's irritating oneself or what's the trigger at the moment is often the solution to that situation at the moment here now, yet we're conditioned in our past and present thinking, our belief systems, that no, that causes irritation. That cannot be the solution. And I swear to God, every time I'm able to do that, not going against your instincts, not going against your guidance, but every time I've been able to do that, a new solution has appeared that I never would have thought of. And I was like, oh, that was so easy. I've been pounding my head on that window for 3 years. All I had to do was turn around and go the other direction. Oh my God. And then I'm like, oh, I can't believe that was so easy. Anyway, I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, it's the root of this all, Susan, is to the willingness to say, I don't know. It's the same thing as giving the little willingness. I don't know, Spirit, just take it, I trust you, Spirit. Let's continue our reading here. I know we read through this already, so we have the leeway for time. Some newer forms of the ego's plan are as unhelpful as the older ones because form does not matter and the content has not changed. In one of the newer forms, for example, a psychotherapist may interpret the ego's symbols in a nightmare and then use them to prove that the nightmare is real. Having made it real, he then attempts to dispel its effects by depreciating the importance of the dreamer. This would be a healing approach if the dreamer were also identified as unreal. So this is certainly a bit of a technical psychotherapy thing here. If the way to counteract fear is to reduce, so essentially, as I understand it, psychotherapy in this sense is saying, tell me about the nightmare that you had. Oh, wow. Okay. Don't worry about it. Your thoughts have no real significance. That's how I understand this. And then this is essentially saying, how is that healing? How is that healing to say your thoughts have no significance? Because as we're told, and as we know intuitively, inherently, that there are no idle thoughts, that all thought is creating on a grand and infinitesimal scale. So to say that we don't, our thoughts don't mean anything, maybe may allay the discomfort, but it renders us impotent. It takes away all of our power. So whatever alleviation we're having is just temporary, which is, I believe, what is being said in this next paragraph. Go ahead, Teresa. Unmute here. Press that, there we go.
I was going to say, unless the therapist is also on the mindset of that this is an illusion. So what happened is an illusion, but so is this life, that it is all veiled. That if you're saying both pieces, then it could be healthy. But if you're leaving the person identified in this body on this earth, then it's either way you flip it, it's disconnected.
I think I see what you're saying, Teresa. Essentially, to say that don't worry about it because we're still here now, right? It's like,
But if it's all an illusion, the dream and this life, then it works because it's everything. But if one is real and the other isn't, then you're in the conflict.
Yes.
And leaving the person worse off than they were. Or
segment, yeah.
As disconnected.
Split-minded.
Exactly.
Really, really splitting the mind further. So, of course, this says nothing really happens in psychotherapy. Just pretty strong stance. I'm sure there are psychotherapists that heal. So what should happen? This is a nice little paragraph here. Perhaps Karen has a few words about this. When God said, "Let there be light," there was light. Can you find light by analyzing the darkness as a psychotherapist does, or like the unhealed theologian by emphasizing sin and our futility in combating it? Healing is not mysterious. Nothing will change unless it is understood, since light is understanding. This is telling us that healing, it can be understood. In other words, all of this can be understood. Knowledge, God can be understood. This is one and the same concept. To have the willingness to say, God can be understood. I can be understood. Healing can be understood. I'm willing to learn it. Of
All I'd
course.
really like to bring into that is the discussions that you and I have had about light and dark. And I'm not really sure how this relates to A Course in Miracles, but we like to say light, dark, and dark, light, and not differentiate so much between the two. I mean, there is healing in the light, dark. There is healing in the dark, light. That's what rose up the first time you read it. That's what rose up the second time you read it.
Thank you. Karen's Hebrew name is Hannah. So thank you, Hannah. And so this is critical. And this is, if we go to in the beginning, Genesis, it's as the book is called. Just notice that, in the beginning, when God created heaven and earth, that's the first line. The next line is, and the earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the face of the deep. So God created this earth dark and void and formless. What's wrong about it? Nothing. Nothing. If we're calling it wrong, then that is wrong because we've made a judgment, and the judgment is wrong, not the darkness. Of course, this is all perhaps metaphorical, but even just physical. I do agree, Karen, that it's about time that we, spiritual community, can frame darkness in the holiness that light also shares. Because inevitably, as we have seen in our society, when we only frame light as holy, it naturally leads to white is holy, darkness is evil, blackness is evil, and this has subconscious effects and conscious effects on us that we see playing out. So let's learn to embrace the darkness, divine darkness. It's not to say embrace evil, because why is darkness evil? If we can start to question these and put it in the right context, we are fulfilling the desires and the wishes of our brother, our holy brother, Dr. Martin Luther King, who talked about this 60 years ago. So,
Amen.
Judith. Go ahead, Judith, hand raised.
Yeah, just on that darkness and lightness, as long as we're still thinking of separation in any way, be it dark or light or anything else, it's still a thought of separation. It's not the unity. It can't be healed because it's not the truth.
Absolutely. Thank you, Judith. And this is, I think, what Karen is hinting at or alluding to if we call it the dark light as a single concept, or the light dark, the light darkness, or the dark light, because it's the entire concept, just like yin and yang. It's the full concept itself, not just either one. Not to say that only half of yin and yang is good. No. That's the surface good. All of yin and yang is good with a capital G. Just like God saw what he created and it was good. All of what was created, not just the light is good, of course, but all of what was created is good, including the darkness, because it's the contrast. So both forms of the ego's approach then must arrive at an impasse, the characteristic impossible situation to which the ego always leads. And this might as well just be referenced in every single section, because what we're being trained to recognize that essentially if we're in an impossible situation, it's only because we thought it was possible to be in an impossible situation. It's another line in A Course in Miracles. Alternatively, if we're in an impossible situation, we're thinking with the ego, because only the realm of possibility is what exists in spirit. And solutions are not this give and take. I'll sacrifice this and you sacrifice that, and then we have a solution. We have a compromise. No, no, no. A Course in Miracles says solutions benefit all, period. Not only is this what solution is, but this is what we're called to embrace. So if we're ever in a situation and we feel like, well, I'm going to give this up, you give that up, and then no, that's a pseudo solution. That's temporary. It leads to just further miscommunication. It's not solving. True solutions benefit everybody. They're natural. They're what's here when we allow it to be. And they're what we should remain vigilant in. If we're in this state of non-judgment, for instance, naturally, we're just in this place of, let's just hone this, because we're dancing around something. And if let's just put it in the air that maybe there's something better than what we've proposed. And then we get an email from somebody that is the solution, for instance. So, little side note. Of course, it doesn't help to point out if somebody's wrong, if we're not also changing direction. To provide a meaningful example of somebody who has changed direction might help. So the light, this is our brother who is healing us while we heal him. The light in his mind will therefore answer the questioner, who must decide with God that there is light because he sees it.
I feel a very strong impulse to jump back to what I had said earlier about the conversation with my beloved sister. And I want to make it, I want to really emphasize this idea that her thought that one should not be allowed to speak at some certain point, which I'm calling this imaginary line, that was not a wrong thought. And I just want to make it really clear, I wasn't listening to her and thinking that's a wrong thought. What it was I listened to my sister and I see her and know her as God, and knew, I wasn't analyzing it while we were having the conversation, but while it was happening, what was happening is that Holy Spirit, or universal inspiration is my term for that I like, was revealing to me that this exists, that there is this imaginary line that humankind has drawn. And so it allowed me to be aware of it. And then it allowed me then to bring it up today and maybe have a conversation with somebody else about it at another time. So perhaps ultimately that imaginary line will dissolve and healing will, and that will have been healed. There's nothing wrong with what anybody says. That's really the whole point about not drawing the imaginary line, so that people can say this and not say that. Same with my sister in the conversation. It wasn't wrong at all for her to think that way.
Well, thank you, Karen, because I'll tell you exactly what happened. Is you drew the imaginary line and then projected it onto her. I know this because this is what I just did onto you.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, just to take it to how I can know this is because I drew the imaginary line saying America is split. And something doesn't feel right about that to me. It's not. It's my imaginary line that I'm making the split. And so I could recognize this. So thank you for sharing this so that we heal together.
So great. It's so great. It's like, if anybody knows what the Russian Marushka dolls are, they're the doll within the doll within the doll. It's like that, or the onion. you know, the peel, like you like to talk about that, Teresa, the peeling back the layers. It's like, oh, there's another doll. It's a smaller doll. Oh, oh, look at the little tiny doll in there. I love the Mariska dolls.
Didn't raise my hand. I know, to me, remember how I've always said, it's like the bubbles, the little bubbles that have to come up. And when we do it, as you do, and each of us do for one another, that's the healing. It offers the healing because it's got to be bubbled up. It's got to get, even if it's not an intent, you're sitting there intending, this is what I want to say, but it did happen. You did express it. And then it provides the opportunity for the healing then Tim gets it. You know, that's that dance that is so beautiful, I think, without the big J, the big judgment. I shouldn't have, blah, blah, blah. It's just, there's a get out of the way, and that really unfolds.
And Noah points out to me that I drew the line. I mean, that was so great. That was so perfect. I didn't see that in the moment of my storytelling.
Of course. Well, this is
Yeah.
where these lines come through is thought leaves not its source. The thought must originate within ourselves. We can't see it without ourselves, you know? So just to, you know, it's just a nifty little tool. Also, Kathy, it's a small judgment, small J, but a big dance, capital D dance that you're talking about.
Like the word abundance. I have more. I keep finding it in there, but we are to be dancing. I'm telling you.
Well, it's a fun dance. This is, I don't know if you wanted to say something more, Karen, but you're muted. This is one of the zingers from this section. A therapist does not heal. We can just use a therapist rather than a pronoun. A therapist simply lets healing be. This is simply. We don't heal. We could think of ourselves. We're not healing. We're just letting healing be. We're just sitting and, you know, listening. Oh, wow. You know, and just when we're called to engage. Wow, I love how did you consider this? You know, we're just letting healing be. It's happening. It's happening. It's like the little train on the tracks, and we're just watching it. We're just letting it chug along around the Christmas tree. Also, Karen's favorite, the Holy Spirit is the only therapist with a capital T. Good therapist to have on call, always here now.
The answer, you have a question? That's where the answer is.
Right. The big A or the big G guide. So let's just read the rest. Remember that you choose the guide for helping, and the wrong choice will not help. Essentially, before we continue, what is the wrong choice? The choice that says that something is wrong. The choice in the perspective where something is wrong. The choice where something is not right. That's the wrong choice. Has nothing to say about form or doing specific things. It's a frame of reference where something is wrong. That's the wrong choice. But remember also that the right one will. What is this? First of all, it's will. Doesn't even say choice, interestingly enough. It's not about choice. It's about will, and it's about right will, meaning willing that everything is right. Of course, how can there be the alternative is that some things are not right, some things are wrong, but willing everything is right allows it to be, allows our healing to be. So the right one will, of course, we're playing with words here, but it's meant to be this way. Trust Spirit and help, for help is Spirit's function, and Spirit is of God. As you awaken other minds to the Holy Spirit, through Spirit, and not yourself, you will understand that you are not obeying the laws of that world. That's the separated world, the world with limits. You're not obeying the laws of that world, but the laws that you are obeying work. Things just seem to line up, which is really joyful all through the day. The good is what works is a sound, though insufficient statement. Only the good can work. Nothing else works at all. This is similar to a previous statement, essentially saying, tell me what to do, and I will do only that. No more, no less. I don't need to think that doing what I'm told and then some is going to bring me more because I'm told to only do this. So only the good can work. Nothing else works at all. Tell me what to do. I will do only this. This course offers a very direct and a very simple learning situation and provides the guide who tells you what to do. This also should be said and repeated. I know it is repeated, but just to present itself for the inevitable perspective where it says A Course in Miracles, that I just don't get it, or I tried to read it, I can't understand it. Have you read chapter 9, section 5, paragraph 9? This course offers a very direct and a very simple learning situation and provides the guide who tells you what to do. How simple is this? To have a very simple and direct learning situation. Isn't this interesting? It's not telling us that it's providing us, it does tell us at some points, provides us with the answer in the sense that there's one answer. It's telling us it offers a learning situation beyond the text. When we're in A Course in Miracles, we're presented with the learning situation in our experience because Spirit is working in our experience. So this course, you can think that it's just text in a book. That's fine, and so it will be for you. But to understand that this course is an entire perspective, an entire paradigm, an entire experience that offers us the learning situation, not just a hypothetical. You go to school and you learn about hypothetical things, and this is what I did in this past event. A Course in Miracles provides the learning situation in our experience. We wake up and the day is saying, I trust in you that you're gonna have the little willingness all day. I trust in it. And so this is what's being crafted for you today. And when we're in the little willingness, we're on this little, it's a small world ride, and it's just, the people are coming and saying hello and everybody's singing. And it presents a learning situation in our experience.
Yeah, that's just so gorgeous. And because of the little willingness, the day knows that, we are not going to make any decisions on our own, because that was a part of our willingness to say, well, today I'm not going to, me from this human ego perspective, I'm not going to make any decisions on my own today. I'm going to make decisions, or I'm going to allow Holy Spirit or universal inspiration to make those decisions with me, through me. And the day knows this as well.
The day is beautiful.
The day is privy to the little willingness, right?
So just a little, I know perhaps, and first of all, I know we're a bit over time, but I know perhaps it can seem nebulous, like how do I let Spirit decide for me? Just ask. If Helen Schuckman, her biography, she's known to have been in, critical times, and just to say, just wait, let me just ask Christ or Spirit, what should I do? Should I go right or left? And this is a powerful thing. It need not take the form of saying, hold on, I need to stop. And what I know to be very powerful is just a point of centering and feeling where the heart, what does the heart align with? This or this? And it's pretty obvious which the heart wants, because what is the heart, or just our center? But to ask and to know that when we're asking, we're not asking the limited perspective, we're asking Spirit, tell me, I'm not sure, am I supposed to turn right or left? Right, okay, got it. And then once we've felt into it fully in the moment, then just trust it, because we've been in the space of asking, and we knew that I was told to go right, so I'm gonna go right, and I'm just gonna go. Maybe later on I'll be called to turn around, but I'd follow this guidance. But the critical thing is to ask, is to quiet, however it may be, we don't need to necessarily meditate for 20 minutes to just to ask a question, but just I think some space is required to, okay, should I eat the rice or the bread? Okay, rice tonight. Because truly, there's no order of difficulty in miracles. There's no small decision. There's no big decision. There are just these moments when we feel like there's a decision. Hold on, I'm confused. I feel like there's a decision. Spirit, which one? Okay, got it. Okay, got it. And so, of course, if you do it, you will see that it works. And what is doing it? It's just willing, just giving a willingness that it can happen. Its results are more convincing than its words, of course. It'll convince you that the words are true by following. I think I can speak for all of us here that have been in A Course in Miracles that it is a mystical experience, that the experience does convince us that the words are true more often than vice versa. Or it comes to a point where you're just convinced that the words are true because so much experience has led to knowing it experientially. And of course, by following the right guide, meaning the guide of rightness, that all is right, you will learn the simplest of all lessons. By their fruits ye shall know them, and they shall know themselves. So, all right. And we're still here. We're still here now. Thank you all for staying after here. We had a bit of a spillover, but all in perfect time. Teresa, I'm sure. Karen, do you have anything to share? Teresa has some closing words for us.
Chapter 6. You are a child of God, a priceless part of his kingdom, which God created as part of him. Nothing else exists, and only this is real. With great love and an open heart, see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Man, love y'all.